Hello, this is a very spaced out Katie Galactic that wants to talk to you a little bit about the energy at the moment on the planet and the Pisces stellium and the transmissions that are coming in from the galaxy and solar system and how it's affecting us at the moment and what we can do about it to minimize some of the effects that we are feeling that may be a little bit too intense. Okay, so let's start just by describing some of the energy that is going on at the moment. For the past 2 or 3 weeks we have been inundated by Pisces energy. A lot of the planets are in Pisces. It is not uncommon to have a lot of planets in one sign, but at the moment we have an unusual number of planets that have been in the sign of Pisces. And in fact today, that is March 11th, we have 7 planets in Pisces if we consider planets also the moon and Chiron. Okay, and the last time there were this many planets in Pisces, I think in a sign, not in Pisces but in a sign, it was I think in 1962 with the Aquarius stellium that is actually quite famous because which produced some interesting oddballs at the time, one of which is Eddie Izzard that was born in February 1962. I can't remember if it was March, if it was February 3rd or 4th, which is when the stellium was most clustered. Okay, so we have all of this energy in Pisces. We have also, as part of the stellium, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, just to make things a little bit more interesting. And Pisces is an energy that is fine in small doses, but as we are discovering as we're going through it, an overload of Pisces energy can actually make you very emotional, very weepy, a little bit of victim consciousness and poor me stuff going on. It doesn't have a lot of get up and go, especially with Mars in Pisces like it is right now. The desire to actually do stuff is very low. So fatigue and a little bit spacey, a little bit ungrounded, and just in general not the easiest of energies to navigate. Okay, luckily this particular Piscean energy is about to dissolve. The moon is in Pisces today, but tomorrow it's going to be in Aries, and I'm talking now on March 11th of 2013. And Mars is also going into Aries tomorrow, and gradually as the month rolls forward, on Monday Mercury is going to go direct. That is going to still be in Pisces, but it will make things a little bit easier. And then Venus is going to go, and the Sun are both going to go into Aries roughly at the same time. So at this point we will end up having a smaller version of the stellium in Aries, because Neptune and Chiron are going to stay in Pisces for a very long time. Neptune is going to stay in Pisces for years, and Chiron probably for about another year or so. And so those two are going to stay in Pisces, but the other guys are going to start rolling forward, and by the time Mercury makes it into Aries, the Sun is going to go into Taurus. So it's not going to be quite the same intensity of stellium in Aries. It's going to be a much smaller version, but we are going to have a interesting little Aries cluster coming in as well. Okay. Also, as Mars moves into Aries, it is going to make a conjunction with Uranus that is already in Aries at the beginning of Aries, like 7-8 degrees of Aries. And when it does that, it's going to activate the Pluto-Uranus square. So that is going to be interesting to see how that actually plays out. We're going to have about 10 days of this conjunction if we consider the degrees approaching and leaving of Mars. We're going to have between a week and 2 weeks of this Mars conjunct Uranus in Aries, which is quite volatile, square Pluto, which makes the whole thing quite intense. So we will have to see what that does, and in the world at large, that is a very volatile energy. So it will be interesting to see on the collective field how that particular combination gets played out. So while we've been very spaced out and having a hard time staying grounded with the Pisces energy, Aries is much more dynamic, but it can also be quite volatile, especially when it's combined with Uranus. So it will be interesting to see what happens during that first phase. Okay. Now, every now and then I have people that say, why do you focus so much on the planets? In fact, I had a woman on Facebook that defriended me because I've been posting a lot of astrology lately. And one thing that not a lot of people know about me is that I've actually been studying astrology and been an astrologer since 1997, so this is not a new thing for me. I've been doing it for about 16 years. It's just I don't do it professionally because I don't particularly like doing charts for people. But I do look at the planets and what they're doing for friends and family and for the planet a lot, especially when they're things that are significant in the sky. And I am a physicist, and I've thought a lot about how astrology works. In fact, I even wrote an article about it at some point about 10 years ago. And I am convinced that astrology is just a way that we use to describe changes of electromagnetic field on the sun that are caused by the relative positions of the planets between each other, and the effect of the modulated sun field onto the earth field, and how that then affects us. And the birth chart is nothing but the imprint of the geomagnetic field onto the newborn baby's energy field, right? And so we end up having some electromagnetic imprints that can be triggered by other frequencies that come from the modulated electromagnetic field on the sun that then affect us. So as the planets change positions, the sun changes. There's some changes on the sun. There's even a paper that was written about this by a physicist in the UK, an astrophysicist in the UK. And these changes then affect the earth field, that then affect the field that is us. Okay, so astrology is actually a science. It's just a science that hasn't been studied properly by mainstream science, but we know that the elite, for example, use astrology all the time. Ronald Reagan had his own personal astrologer, and so on. Okay, so this is not foo-foo stuff. We're literally looking at the weather in the solar system, electromagnetic weather, and how it's affecting our own field and our own being. Okay, now, however, at the moment there's more than just the Pisces stellium going on. And we've talked before about the fact that there is an energy that is being generated from the center of the galaxy. And last week I was working with a friend because I was feeling too much energy coming into my body. And it was really hard, not for me just to stay grounded, that was okay, but my nervous system felt really triggered and hot, and I was having a hard time diffusing it. And usually that to me is a sign that there's a pulse coming in from the galactic solar field that has to do with the shifting energies that we're going through. And usually I managed to ground that stuff on my own, but it was so strong. This was about a week ago. It was so strong I couldn't do it. So I went to see a friend, and together we did some brainstorming, and we're both psychic, so we held a feel for each other. And we ended up seeing more details about this pulse, and that this pulse was not just coming from the center of the galaxy, but it was coming from the center of this universe itself. And we connected with some consciousness that seems to regulate and understand this pulse, a very vast consciousness, and this vast consciousness was basically explaining that none of this was personal. A particular axis within the universe is going through a shift, and that there's literally like a pulse that is activating this axis, and our galaxy is on that axis, and everything that is on this axis at the moment is expanding, both horizontally and vertically, in various dimensions, and that we're in for the ride kind of thing. And nothing that this being, consciousness or whatever was saying was new. It was pretty much everything that I have seen in my own outer body experiences that I've been having since I found myself out of body on the sun during the Fukushima, the days after the Fukushima quake, right? Because I was trying to do some healing for the earth at the time, and I ended up out of my body and on top of the sun, and I was shown how the sun was triggering a lot of the fault lines. I was shown that the reason for that was that the earth was expanding, that it was expanding from the core. It was just coming from the core of the earth. There was an expansion. It was solar driven. And then I was shown that the sun was activating and going into its quote unquote ninth dimensional light body. This actually was shown to me when I went out there to look. And then when I was on that ninth dimensional light body, I was then shown another energy that was coming in from the galactic field. And then at a later time, because I've had several of these outer body trips to wherever in the galaxy, at a later time I actually found myself in the center of the galaxy and interacted with a consciousness there that took me to another place still. And basically I was given this whole tour of the universe just to see how the energy was working. And since then I've become convinced experientially, not that I didn't know about some of these things before, but it became really clear to me that we're going through a galactic solar phenomenon that may even be universal, but on this axis that this consciousness was talking about, and that every so often we get a quote-unquote download of energy that is actually a pulse from the core, and that this takes us into the next level of clearing or activation that we need to go into. But the thing is, it happens anyway. It happens even if we don't want it. It happens even if we decide that we want to eat fried chicken all day. This is not a voluntary activation. Just by being on the planet, we are signing up to being activated at this time. That is one of the reasons which a lot of souls are here, because they actually do want to be activated. And they do want to have the clearing that occurs as a result of that activation. Okay? However, every now and then it can get a little much. Every now and then we can find that the energy that's coming in, especially in the past year or so, I remember once going to listen to a lecture by Barbara Marciniak, and this was a very long time ago, and she said that in the 90s every year the energy kind of doubled, but from 2000 onwards the energy was going up exponentially, and by the time we got to 2010 that the energy would just keep on would just become super intense, and every year would be like 1,000 times more intense than the year before. I don't know about 2010, but definitely in 2011 we had Fukushima, and there was a big download of energy then. And in 2011 there was an incredible amount of energy that came through for the whole of the spring. Sorry, in 2012. And that is why I did the video about discharging extra energy, because a lot of people were struggling with having so much energy to process within their energy field. And this year it seems that the pattern is very similar. We've started in mid-February, and the energy has been escalating and escalating, and it seems that it's escalating still. So the energy that is coming through at the moment, I actually was shown that this morning while I was working with a client, and I was shown her DNA, and in the middle of the DNA I was shown strands of very watercolor pastel strands, like silk, that were going into the DNA, and each strand was very fine, and the colors were aquamarine, aqua, pink, yellow, but a very light lemony kind of yellow, and then I saw some pink, some green, kind of like lime green, and a lot of strands of gold. Okay, so gold to me is always a source energy, so obviously we're receiving some of the source energy, and the rest I think is a mixture of what we're receiving from the galaxy and this very watery Pisces energy that we're also receiving at the moment. The energy felt very beautiful, very ethereal, but there's a lot of it, and some people are struggling with holding both polarities of it. On the one hand, some people are getting very agitated, and they're having a lot of anxiety and a lot of panic attacks, and having trouble sleeping just because there's so much energy coming through. And on the other hand, some other people are having trouble staying grounded. They're feeling very fatigued and very teary, and they're having all the symptoms of too much boredom. Okay, and that is definitely the overload of Pisces that is doing that. So we've got overload of energy coming in from the galaxy, plus the overload of Pisces that is kind of making things a bit harder. Then I was also shown that the next batch of energy that is coming in is red, so that figures with the Aries energy, that it would be red. And it felt like a very bold red, and it still had gold in it, but it was much bolder strokes. And it felt that even this energy would be really intense, and in some ways maybe even a little bit more challenging, because it's really hot energy, while instead the energy that was coming in before was very ethereal. Okay, now all of these energies are useful in terms of the activation that they provide and the opportunity for clearing that they provide, but our bodies are not really designed to have to take in this much of it, and so it's important that we find a way to modulate actually how much energy is coming into the body. So last year I did a little meditation on how to discharge extra energy that has already come into the body, and right now I would like to teach you a little process of how to not allow as much energy into the body. So to do this, what you have to do is close your eyes and visualize in your mind's eye a dial that goes from 0 to 100, and it can be a dial that covers an arch that goes from 0 to 100. And then in your mind, once you've visualized that, ask to be shown how much energy you're actually receiving as a receiver from the galactic solar activation field right now. And most people, when they do this, they will get a figure that is around 80% to 100%. That means that you're receiving almost all of the energy that is being put out from the solar system right now, which at the moment is actually too much for most people. Okay? So once you have done that, ask to be shown how much of the energy that is being put out by the solar galactic field do you actually need. And you will see that the arrow on the dial will go down, and for most people, well, this will settle somewhere between 0 and 20%. So see where the arrow settles for you. How much of this energy do you actually need? 0%, 5%, 10%, 15%. See where your arrow lands. And once you have found that out, ask for your dial to be turned down so that you only receive the energy that you need. and literally instruct your energy field and the consciousness that that protects your energy field to turn the dial on the amount of energy that you're receiving from 80-100 to whatever it is that you need right now. And it could even be 0. It could even be that you don't actually need any of this energy. Or it could be that you only need 10% or 1%. For me, when I did it, I only needed 20%, and I was told that I needed some of this so that I could actually see what was going on, but I didn't need to process the whole thing in my body. And as soon as I did this, the anxiety that I had been having and the nervous system symptoms that I had been having went away, and I haven't had them since. Okay, and it's been almost a week now. So it works. And you may want to do this a couple of times a day at the beginning, just to make sure that it's working. And you may want to do it again in about a week, because the energy keeps on changing, so there may be times in which you do need some of this energy, and there may be times in which you need less, and maybe times in which you need more. So every week or so you may want to actually scan how much energy you're taking in, how much energy you actually need, and adjust your dial accordingly. And in doing this, you will only take in the amount of energy that you need for your mission and for your activation, but you will not overload your body, your energy systems, your nervous systems with so much that it can't be processed, because literally what happens to the body is that it can start to almost crash. For some it's a physical crash, but for others it's an emotional and nervous crash, and for some people that are hormonally sensitive, it can almost feel like a case of really bad PMS, and there's a reason for it, because these energies are very activating for the chakras, which are connected to the glands that produce all of the hormones, so that it can interfere with the hormonal cascade, and it can create some strong feelings of imbalance, right? But if you can modulate what you're actually receiving, and if you have already received a lot of energy, you can do the process that I did last year about discharging extra energy, that is also here on YouTube, and that should help you to stay clear and to be not as overloaded, so that you can continue to function and do what it is that you've come to do without taxing your systems too hard. So that will be all for now. That is all I wanted to say, just a little update with a little process for you to do if you're feeling a little bit overtaxed by the energies around you. I wish you a wonderful rest of the week, rest of the month, and blessings. Namaste.